Good morning and welcome. You are watching the Mining Show on Core Finance, brought to you by Blytheway, and I'm Charlie Gibson. Now, in the world of junior mining, as a lot of people know, it is, well, I wouldn't say it's all about the commodity price, but it's certainly, it'd be fair to say, I think it's not least about the commodity prices. And one of those commodity prices that has performed extremely well this year, arguably the second best performer of all the commodities so far this year, is tungsten, which is up about 60%, give or take, year to date. Arguably, it's all to do with the Baker Hughes rig count in the United States that appears to be, at the very least, there certainly is a correlation between Baker Hughes and the tungsten price. And so what companies can take advantage of that? Well, one of the companies here now is Thor Mining, and I'm joined by the Chairman and Chief Executive, Mick Billing. Mick, very, very good morning to you. Thank you very much indeed for joining us.
Charlie, nice to see you again.
So tell us, we got the tungsten price up this great amount, and you have these, these tungsten prospects in the form of Molyhil and Pilot Mountain. So how does that change things?
It hasn't hurt at all, Charlie. We've been working for a long time on tungsten. For better or for worse, we've put tungsten on our banner and charged ahead. And there's been some bad times, but they seem to be replaced by good times. The 60-odd% improvement in the commodity price over the last 8-10 months is terrific. Most of that's been in the last 2 or 3 months, in what is normally a period when the tungsten price softens as the Northern Hemisphere factories close down, they send their people off to take a holiday, etc. The price has gone up. It usually starts to pick up again in September, October, November. If that does, well, that's happy days for us, I think, and hopefully our investors as well. So,
Colin, here we are. You've got these couple of deposits. You actually, I should mention, you have another one, haven't you? You've got a copper deposit, Kapunda, in Australia. But let's talk about tungsten to begin with. You've got Molyhil, you've got Pilot Mountain. So, where are you? How are you taking them forward?
Right. I think each of them are good quality assets, a little different, but high quality assets. At Molyhil in the Northern Territory, it is an animal that we have a feasibility study. We have environmental clearance to go and do what we need to do. We've done all the metallurgical test work we need to do. There's always more bits we can do. Of course, you never stop doing that. Try and make it cheaper, faster, better, all of those things. But the key takeaways from our feasibility study of a couple of years ago are fourfold. One is it has a net present value in US dollars of a bit over $50 million. The second is that the capital cost of getting that into production, excluding the things that you can lease like trucks and loaders and power generation equipment, is about $40 million US dollars, so it's not a big lump to swallow. The third thing is the cost it will take to get it out of the ground and turn it into a concentrate. That's about $110, $112 per metric tonne unit of tungsten.
And the tungsten price is roughly at the moment?
312.
So there's a nice margin there.
There is a nice margin. The people who look at these things independently have said that the capital cost is about $50 a metric tonne unit that we're going to produce. You add that on to the 110, that's about 160. That's about half the current cost, half the current price. That's a good place to be in, and we think even if the price doesn't continue to go up, but I suspect it may, then we are probably close to the front of the queue when it comes to development of a new tungsten deposit right there at Molyhil.
So presumably financiers are biting your hand off, are they?
You've got to work a little bit harder than that, Charlie, but thank you very much.
Well, go on. So and presumably you're going around, you're talking to institutions all the time, and what's their reaction?
We are. The International Tungsten Industry Association has its annual get-together in the last week of September each year. That's next week. It happens to be in Moscow. We'll be there talking to a bunch of players. We've got a very full dance card this year of people who, in the downstream area, who seem to want more tungsten concentrate to put through their plants. I'm not saying there's a deal to be done, but there are people who would like to talk to us.
So what is it? So you mine at Molyhil, and then what, you export concentrate?
That's correct.
To China?
No, not to China. China produces most of the world's tungsten anyway. So the other parts of the world that consume tungsten are looking for an alternative to China largely. So there is no domestic production of tungsten in the United States at the moment, or in any part of North America right now. They are looking for additional sources of supply. There is some tungsten production in Europe, but there are Europeans who want more. They've been getting a lot of their requirements in the last 2 or 3 years from recycled scrap. I believe, without having the absolute numbers in front of me, that stockpile of scrap has dwindled and it's now more or less in some form of equilibrium, and that is one of the things that puts some upward pressure on the tungsten price.
So would you envisaging, and what did your feasibility study, was that done on the basis of exporting to the US or to Europe, or?
It was.
Both, or one or the other?
Well, from Australia it doesn't cost much. The cost differential between one and the other is not great when it comes to shipping. We have an agreement with a North American processor for a good part of our supply, and we could send about 70% of our stuff over to the United States under that agreement.
And that's a formal offtake agreement?
That's a memorandum of understanding. They want our product, and we discussed rough terms, but they would buy it at market price. It was we've got to know one another over the last few years. There's a deal there to be done there, I think.
So what's the trigger, do you think, for getting the finance, developing the mine, and getting the project developed?
The trigger, I think, is the price, and then how hard I push and how well I sell our offer. I think we are. Is
the price yet high enough, or does it have to be another 10% higher?
Charles, we'd always like it higher.
Yeah, of course you would.
But right now, but if you have a price that is more than double your costs, it's not a bad position to be in right now.
So you're happy. So now it's a matter of you going out and saying, "Come on, are you happy to ante up?"
Let's go and do it. Yeah.
What about, I'm going to loosely use the term off-taker, the company on the other side with whom you have the memorandum of understanding, who would take your product? Would they be prepared to finance some of that?
We have made noises like that in the past, but in a different pricing scenario. We'll have those conversations again, I'm sure, next week.
Excellent. Well, we'll look forward to the answer. We'll certainly look forward to the answer. Tell us a little bit, we talked about Molyhil. Tell us a little bit about Pilot Mountain.
Sure. Pilot Mountain is becoming quite a large tungsten deposit in real terms, and will continue to grow. There's about 33,000 tonnes of contained tungsten there at Pilot Mountain, and if you say there's tungsten is currently valued at $31,000 a tonne, that's big dollars. There's also a bunch of copper, zinc and silver there, so it's in a global sense it's becoming quite a significant deposit. It will continue to grow as I say, but there's probably not a lot more drilling that we will do in the near term. A couple of things we would like to test and should do so, but I suspect in the next 12 months we will start to work towards permitting a mining operation for at least a couple of the two deposits there at Pilot Mountain, and also towards getting regulatory approval, the environmental studies, some more metallurgical test work to get a costed flow sheet, because while we know we can produce a tungsten concentrate, we've done that. What we have not yet done to the appropriate level is sufficient work to give us a costed flow sheet for that.
What are your timelines, do you think, on Pilot Mountain? In terms of from where we are today, which is roughly speaking, you're at the end of resource delineation, you want to do studies, probably scoping, pre-feasibility, bankable, raise finance, put it into production, all of those things. What could we be looking at, do you think?
With the best will in the world, Charles, this is not going to happen inside 2 years from now to there. Sure. It just cannot happen, even in the state of Nevada. And not denigrating the state of Nevada at all, but there is a process that you must follow to get regulatory approval, and you should not shortcut that, and you cannot. So you don't even try. You go through the process and you do it properly. There's geotech work we need to do to make sure the ground is stable when we mine. It'll start off as a couple of open pits, but at some stage we'll go underground. There's a whole bunch of work you have to do to start a new mine, and It doesn't necessarily cost an enormous amount of money. It doesn't come for nothing, but it takes some time because it's got to be done properly. Otherwise, you won't get the finance and you won't get the regulatory approval.
So we're running out of time, but briefly, talk us through. We talked about Pilot Mountain, talked about Molyhil. Tell us about Kapunda.
Kapunda's a copper project in South Australia, an hour or so north of Adelaide, and I happen to live in Adelaide, so I've been aware of Kapunda for some time. There's an opportunity to start re-mining Kapunda because it was being mined in the late 1800s from quite high-grade copper production there. There's an opportunity to do that with in situ leaching, or in situ recovery, as some people would prefer to call it. And this is relatively novel in copper terms. It's commonplace in uranium. There's a couple of people doing it with copper. We know that the deposit is there, all the drilling is being done, and no more needs to happen to say how much is going to be there. We will have a resource estimate out on Kapunda in 2-3 weeks from now, and that will be, I think, a number that will make people say, that's not too bad. It's not going to make Rio get all that concerned. It's not of that nature, but it is going to be a tidy resource that we believe can produce 8,000 tonnes of copper a year for 8 or 10 years or so at a very tidy margin.
So tell me, the obvious question is, you've got 3 projects here. You've got Molyhil, you've got Pilot Mountain, you've got Kapunda. Are you stretching yourself a bit thin as a junior mining company? Are you stretching yourself a bit thin personally?
Personally, well, it depends on how much time I want to hop on aeroplanes and keep travelling around and telling this story. But as far as the company is concerned, most of the money that needs to be spent to get to where we are and to take it a little bit further has been spent. There is not a lot of money to spend now to get the resource estimate out on Kapunda, to upgrade the feasibility on Molyhil, or to get to the stage where we can rule a line in the sand at Pilot Mountain and say, yes, this is a mining project, let's start working towards making it a mining development.
Is there a case for splitting the assets, do you think? Spinning one or two? Or
we have that discussion from time to time, and we will continue to have those discussions. I think that may well be something we look at seriously in the next couple of years. Right now it's a lot of fun, and I'm not sure which one I want to lose right now.
Speaking of which, methinks, well, that's all we've got time for really, but I'll give the last word to your tie. Methinks that's an Adelaide Crows tie.
It is indeed. The Adelaide Football Club, my Aussie rules side, are in the playoffs for the premiership. If they win tomorrow night, they'll go into the grand final the following Saturday. I'll be there just in time to watch them hopefully win the flag for the first time in about 20 years.
And a prediction?
Adelaide Crows.
Excellent. All right. Mick, thank you very much indeed. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Mick Billing, the Chairman and Chief Executive of Thor Mining. I'm afraid that's all we've got time for, but join us again next week where we'll be looking for more such opportunities. This is me, Charlie Gibson, signing off for the Mining Show, brought to you by Blytheway on Core Finance. Until then, you have a capital day.